Today we're going to talk about Saudi Arabia and in particular the Saudi Pro League, the SPL, which is the league of football in the country. And it was founded in 1976, so it's been around for 47 years. 2007, it was fully professional, but it's only this year, January 2023, that people started hearing of it because Cristiano Ronaldo signed for Al Nassr for about $200 million a year. Now, he signed as a player, but also in the future, going forward, as an ambassador for the country and for the Saudi Pro League. And a couple of other things have happened in recent years. Of course, the Saudis have taken ownership of Newcastle United. So overnight, Newcastle are one of the richest clubs potentially in the world of football. And also the Saudis have a stake indirectly in Chelsea Football Club because they are investors in Clear Lake Capital. We don't know exactly how much, but Saudi Arabia and football are spoken about in the same breath increasingly. And when Cristiano signed for Al Nassr, YouTubers like my son Thogdad flocked over there and made videos about Saudi football. Now, let's be honest, after the first few games, there's been a little bit less of that, so less media interest since those early games of Cristiano. But today we're going to investigate Saudi Arabia and football. Where's it going to go? Is it a good thing? Now, what is Saudi Arabia? Well, it's a country in the Middle East with 38 million people population, which makes it quite a large country, much bigger than Qatar, where we went for the World Cup. Now, it's a rich country. It's got some of the biggest oil and gas reserves in the world. So when oil and gas prices are high, as they are at the moment pretty much, then the money coming into the country is absolutely huge. So the per capita income in Saudi Arabia is about $67,000. So we can call it a fairly rich country. It's an absolute monarchy. So it's not a democracy like our country. And it's a country that is majority Arab and majority Muslim. Now, it's fair to say that Saudi Arabia is a controversial country. It's a country very different to our own, the United Kingdom. They have a different attitude to the likes of women's rights and workers' rights and human rights, and also to things like gender and sexuality. If you were trying to organize an LGBTQ plus parade in the middle of Riyadh, the capital, you'd be in trouble. It's a country where it's very dangerous to be a journalist. The most famous Saudi is probably Osama bin Laden, the most famous and notorious terrorist of all time. 15 of the 19 hijackers at 9/11, the worst terrorist act on American soil of all time, were Saudis, although there are no proven links between the Saudi government and 9/11. So the brand of Saudi Arabia is very much tarnished. But this might be part of the reason why Saudi Arabia is invested so heavily in football these days. I mean, they're trying to change both their economy and the image of their country because hydrocarbons, oil and gas, over the next 10, 20, 50 years will be used less. There'll be less demand for fossil fuels as people move towards renewables. So the Saudi economy has got to change from getting oil and gas out of the ground to things like tourism and sport and financial services and other types of industries. But what we've got to ask is this just sports washing, or is this country really trying to change? Let's talk more about the Saudi Pro League, because some interesting things are happening in recent months. Now, in Saudi Arabia, you've got something called PIF, the Public Investment Fund, and this is a sovereign wealth fund. And what this is, a bunch of financial managers are controlling hundreds of billions of dollars of public money and investing it for the future. Now, this PIF, the Saudi Public Investment Fund, has taken over 4 of the teams in the Saudi Pro League: Al Ahly, Al Ittihad, Al Hilal and Al Nassr. Now, 4 other teams in the league have been passed over to other investors, and the other couple of teams in the league, they haven't yet decided. So what the Saudi government wants to do is really improve this league. They want to make it one of the best leagues in the world. So the ambitions are quite high. They want to bring in better quality of players. They want to improve the stadiums. They want the league to be run along more professional lines. So, for example, broadcast sports revenues should be able to increase. Now, will this work? That is the big question. Now, what you've got, as I said earlier, 38 million people live in Saudi Arabia. And this is a country where football is very, very popular. And if you also look at the geography of the area, you've got the Middle East, you've got Africa, you've got the Indian subcontinent, so India, Bangladesh, Pakistan, Sri Lanka, you've got Indonesia, you've got Southeast Asia. So you've got well over 1 billion people who are Muslim and who live in the wider area. So the Saudi Pro League is not just about Saudi Arabia, it's about the wider geography. And also, as I said earlier, you've got the money behind this. Saudi Arabia is a very rich country, and the government is completely backing this scheme. So there's a lot of reasons why the Saudi Pro League might actually work. Now let's look at some of the transfers recently to the Saudi Pro League. Now we talked about Cristiano Ronaldo. What a brilliant way to kickstart the league. But Bernardo Silva, remember, one of the best players in the world at the moment, just won a treble with Manchester City. He's only 28 years old, so this is not about retirement. He's got a few good years left in him. He might go to FC Barcelona, he might go to PSG, he might stay at City, but the Saudis are trying to get him to Saudi Arabia. Ruben Neves has just signed for Al Hilal for about $55 million. Now, this is interesting because he's 26 years old, he's in his prime, and he's come from Wolverhampton Wanderers. He could have gone to a lot of clubs across Europe, but he's chosen the mega bucks, and he's going to go to Saudi Arabia because a lot of critics are calling the Saudi League a retirement league. But if you look at Bernardo Silva, you look at Ruben Neves, maybe they get it wrong. Also, Karim Benzema, 35 years old, just signed for Al Ittihad, and he's going to be on similar money to Cristiano Ronaldo. William Carvalho and Hakim Ziyech possibly are coming to Al Nassr, and N'Golo Kante is linked with Al Ittihad. Interestingly, the only very high-profile footballer to turn down the Saudi Pro League has been Lionel Messi, who's decided to go to the USA and Inter Miami. Now, some people are hailing him as a hero, but the truth is he's made a choice for himself and his family. And I said at the time, and I'll say it again, Cristiano Ronaldo, I've got every respect for him going to Saudi Arabia, and the same for Bernardo Silva and Ruben Neves. If they make those decisions, good luck to those people with their lives. You're making a choice for yourself, for your family, for your financial future, and nobody should have a go at them for that reason. So the Saudi Pro League is a massive sporting experiment, and I want to compare this to a couple of sporting experiments in other countries. Now let's look at the Chinese Super League that started in 2015. Now this was the idea of the president of China. So the dear leader ordered that he wanted development of football in his country, and he left it to his minions, to the businessmen and others to actually handle it. Now what they did, they spent mega bucks on the likes of Oscar, Carlos Tevez, Hulk and Ramirez, and they brought these very expensive players into China at a time when the economy was in a good shape and before COVID. But really what happened was there was no grassroots development. So the fan experience for most fans was pretty terrible. And a lot of these players, good players in their prime, were just forgotten. So the league was not really a success. And the president himself was shocked about the way that it developed because he didn't want tons of money spent on foreign talent. He genuinely wanted grassroots development of the Chinese Super League and Chinese football. So that really didn't work. But let's look at the Indian Premier League of cricket, which kicked off in 2007. That has been a massive success. Hundreds of millions of people in India and around the world watch IPL games. That franchise is worth over $11 billion. Now, I look back 40 years to when I was growing up. When I was 14 years old, Ravi Shastri was the captain of India and also the captain of Morecambe Cricket Club. So back in that day, there was no money in Indian cricket. Hard to believe now. So the Saudi Pro League could be success if it learns from the likes of the Chinese Super League and where that went wrong, and from the IPL in India. But what the Saudi Pro League can do is be the most successful league in Asia. It won't happen overnight, but it can happen over the next couple of decades. Now, at the moment, the J1 League of Japan is the 22nd most successful league in the world and the most successful league in Asia. But what they have done and what Saudi Arabia must do is develop football at a local level. You can't just throw multi-millions at the best players and buy a league. So you've got to look at developing players, not just from Saudi Arabia, but from the Middle East, from North Africa, maybe from India, Indonesia, etc., and create a league that way. Now think about Saudi Arabia. It's a country in the desert. Temperatures get up to 45, 50 degrees. So you've got to develop facilities. Some of those will be indoors. Some football will be played at midnight because it's so damn hot in that country. But you've got to bring all levels of football along with you. And this could be good for the country because in Saudi Arabia, like in many countries, like China, like England, you've got health problems. You've got obesity problems, for example, diabetes. You've got to get people playing football and sport. It's good for health. So you've got to look at not just bringing in Ronaldo, but bringing up local players. And this has not just got to be about men and boys, it's also got to be about women and girls. And this is going to be a very interesting one. And Cristiano Ronaldo, you're an ambassador for football in Saudi Arabia. Start asking questions about whether girls in Saudi Arabia, women in Saudi Arabia will be able to play football. Will there be girls' teams? Will there be an international women's team which is fully backed by the government? So the Saudi Pro League, in my opinion, if it's going to be successful, the government's got to get behind it, not just now, but in 10, 20 and 50 years. And you've got to go beyond men's football. You've got to go beyond pro football. You've got to look at sport and football across the country. So will the Saudi Pro League succeed? Well, first of all, let's say it will not compete with the English Premier League and it will not compete with the Champions League. And think about football in our country, England. It has developed since the 19th century, hasn't it? We've got a grassroots. We play Sunday league football. Students play at universities. It's all about the different levels. It's all about the pyramid of football. And that has grown organically over the last couple of centuries. And the Champions League, again, that has developed over decades. It's going to be interesting to know whether at some point the Saudi Pro League will approach the Champions League, will approach UEFA and ask for a couple of places in the Champions League. But don't worry, the Premier League, for as long as I'm alive for sure, will be far greater than the Saudi Pro League.